Hello, everybody, and welcome to Dragon Talk. I just want to make sure we were in full jazz hands mode when we start this going on right here. I am Greg Tito. I am joined by the illustrious Matt Cernit.
Hi.
We have no Chris Perkins today. He is taking some much-needed time off figuring out what our next storyline is going to be. No, that's not actually what he's doing, but I'm going to pretend that's what he's doing, and so he knows exactly what's happening. But not here today, but our lore master is here to delve into some fun Dungeons & Dragons lore, and we'll get to that segment very soon. First, we're going to talk about a little bit of Dungeons & Dragons news that's popping out there. Before we talk about Volo and
Society of Stalwart Adventurers.
Thank you. I was going to say Artisimber, but he's one of the Society
Correct.
of Stalwart Adventurers. And I knew I was going to get it wrong, so thank you for correcting me. That's why you're here. Okay, great. So thank you guys for coming to us. This is Monday morning, July 24th, and that means we have a lot going on. Next week, we will have the premiere of Force Grey Season 2. That's right. We have got it in the can for a while. We'll be talking today with Nathan Stewart and Bart Carroll, who are there at the taping of Force Grey Season 2, and get all the stories out there so that you guys can start watching it next week at 5 p.m. Pacific time here on the D&D Twitch channel. And then we will be also having a wonderful breakout session of Dragon Talk tomorrow at 2 p.m. Streaming live right here on this channel with Deborah Ann Wall, one of the new cast members for Season 2. She was in True Blood. She played the vamp Jessica, which I remember because the Southern gentleman who is in True Blood, I forget his name is. I don't even know what his character's name is, but he would always say, Jessica! Jessica! That's very scolding. So I remember her character name very well. And I'm sure Ryan is looking at me for like, don't pop on the microphone with that. It's just, Jessica. But we'll be talking to her tomorrow at 2 p.m. And it'll be awesome because we get to hear of her take on what it was like to be in Season 2, as well as, I don't know, maybe ask her a few questions about what she's doing in Daredevil, The Punisher. She's in a lot of cool stuff right now, so I can't wait to talk to her. Also about her Dungeons & Dragons campaign. She's got a Los Angeles-based D&D campaign that she is the dungeon master for, and I listened to a podcast with her a while back, and it's pretty interesting how she has woven together D&D lore. I think it's the Raven Queen is a part of her campaign, so I can't wait to pick her brain about that tomorrow. Also going on is we have the return of Maze Arcana is back. No, I'm sorry. I'm lying. It is Wait, that's the right one. Yes, it is back. They took off for San Diego Comic-Con last week. Awesome, great entertainment news coming out of that convention. But a lot of the crew from Maze Arcana were there in San Diego making that happen. So they took off last week. We rebroadcast a bunch of them. They'll be back live on Tuesday with Satine as the Dungeon Master, and on Wednesday at 7 p.m., both of them at 7 p.m. Pacific time. Rudy at the helm on Wednesday night. Of course, Dice Camera Action is tomorrow, so we'll go right from the 2 p.m. interview with Deborah Ann Wall into me talking about Dungeons & Dragons news, right into episode 57 of Dice Camera Action, which should be pretty exciting. There has been some fun goings on there. On Wednesday at 4 p.m., we have Misclick's Risen as a rebroadcast. They are taking a week off, and we'll be back on with some more stuff. They were in the jungles of Chult, and they were looking for weeping spot mushrooms and terrible ghouls and a zombified T-Rex. They mistook the party for a quick snack, and it's going to get pretty bad as they bump into some basilisks, and Jorm's disease starts to drive him mad. That's going to be pretty terrible. But they will be back live the next week. Girl Scouts Glory, episode 6. I'll be talking to Kim and Alice again at 2 p.m. Pacific time on Thursday. We're going to roll right into 3:30 Acquisitions Incorporated, the C Team. We'll be hosting them, and that will be exciting. And then Friday, High Rollers Uncharted Territory is also taking the week off. They'll be rebroadcasting something, but that is at 12 noon. If you want to catch up, that's a great way to catch up with what they've been going on. And then at 7 p.m., the Dragon Friends, 7 p.m. Pacific time on Friday, Dragon Friends episode 4, all the way from Australia. They will be broadcasting live again at 7 p.m. All right. That's what the streaming schedule is. I'm sure you guys have it memorized by now. I'm going to keep doing it. You probably have it better memorized than I do at this point. So kudos to you for that. Yes, good point. Someone in the chat says they want to be Matt Cernit when they grow up. So I do too, actually. I'll grow up at one point. Thank you for that. I'm gonna pronounce this wrong. Onalkadin. Thank you for that comment. That makes total sense. Yes, and it is afternoon. I'm sorry about that. Gosh, I am not up on what time it is. That's why I need more coffee. We're actually doing some remodeling in the office today.
That's true, right.
Yeah, so I have black coffee because they took away the creamer and the sugar.
Right, and you can't get forks anymore, and it's madness.
It's madness. We got some thumbs down happening from Ryan. He couldn't get his tea, but we will have a brand new spicy kitchen soonish.
2 months.
2 months, yeah.
Oh, 2 months. Sounds like 2 months.
Soonish. Yeah, that's terrible. So we're gonna make do with what we got here, and I think we're gonna go right into talking our lore about Volo. What do you guys think? You have any questions about Volo? Maybe we'll get to them after this segment. So go ahead and throw up some questions up on the chat, and we might do some fun stuff about that. Okay, are you ready to do the segment, Mr. Marth? All right, let's jump right into it. Welcome to Lore You Should Know. I am Greg Tito, and I'm joined by the illustrious Matt Cernit.
Hello.
And this is the segment of Dragon Talk where we delve into little tiddly bits of D&D lore to give you some background of what's going on in the Forgotten Realms, as well as some things you can use in your home game. And today, we're going to talk about an old character from the Forgotten Realms, Volo Gedarn.
Gedarm, yeah.
Gedarm.
Yep. Volo, as far as I can tell, he sort of appears in printed products with the first book of Volo's stuff, which I have over here.
Oh,
somewhere.
Look at these. We actually have real props.
I got props. This one here, Volo's Guide to Waterdeep.
Aha. I don't know if we it's kind of hard to see.
And he kind of just sort of erupts full form from Ed Greenwood's imagination there, but he has earlier origins, actually. So
really?
So the name Volo was something that Jeff Grubb used in his games at TSR and around the Wisconsin area.
Yeah.
And it was because there was a swamp, the Volo Bog, that he'd drive past. So that's like in there's a town called Volo in northern Illinois, which is very close to the where the Lake Geneva was, where TSR was. And so he'd apparently drive past that, and so then he would use whenever somebody would ask for a name for something, and he didn't have a name off the top of his head, he would just say it's called Volo's Town, or it's Volo's Dog, or Volo's Inn, or whatever. And eventually they met this this sort of explorer slash map maker, whatever guy, and he was Volo, and he just kept on naming everything after himself. Whenever he discovered something, Volo's Mountain, he'd just name it after himself.
Oh, that's such a cool little in-joke of how a campaign, wheedled its way into D&D lore.
Yeah. And so the wonky thing, too, is that so that we have this name Volo, but then there's also a place in Calimshan called Volo Thamp, which is way to the south. And so short for Volo Thamp. And what the relationship there is between, those two names, I think it's just the similarity, and they got paired together because he doesn't seem to show or exhibit any sort of like Kalishite-ness. So he's just sort of this great explorer who goes and writes a lot of reviews about places and tends to sort of carouse his way along through life, and then wrote several books. So in the fiction of the world of Forgotten Realms, Volothamp Gedarm is an actual author. He's published by Tim Waterdeep Limited or something like that.
There's an actual publishing
company?
company?
Actual publishing house, fictional publishing house.
Oh, cool.
And in fact, I had to actually find the printed copy of this book because we don't have a PDF version of it. And there's a whole short story there where he goes and talks to his publisher, and there's another one in this Realms of the Underdark where he talks to his publisher again, and it's just kind of a cute little thing where he does that. And so
is it like a Hunter S. Thompson type thing where he's involving his story in the story that he's reporting?
So what Volo tends to do is he goes to wherever he's writing about, and he writes a travel guide, and it's really about the best restaurants, the best inns, and sort of the entertainments, and then also just sort of general stuff about the town.
Yeah.
And then every now and then he'll sort of release little secrets or details, like or maybe like in this alleyway is haunted by this ghost, that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And so these books here are just filled with all that kind of stuff. And starting in 1992 and going on until I think the last one was Volo's Guide to Baldur's Gate 2, which is really about not the game at Baldur's Gate 2, but about where it's set, Ethkatla and Am, in that area. We talked about that in previous Lore You Should Know.
We did.
And then there's also, in the fiction of the setting, he wrote Volo's Guide to All Things Magical, which is this longer, or larger format book, more like a standard D&D book.
Yeah.
And that one was banned by Kelvin Blackspath in Waterdeep, and so like all copies were like magically destroyed and banished and stuff like that. So,
Why was that? Why was it banned?
well, all the secrets of magic that he was releasing.
Oh, I see. So it's like
and like all the sort of secret stories of artifacts and weird magical materials and all that kind of stuff that was going on.
so he has like a antagonistic relationship with Blackstaff because it's
Volo has an antagonistic relationship with a lot of people.
now
he overstays his welcome. He writes bad reviews of places and people get pissed off at him, and that kind of a thing.
Yeah, and then he also has a tenuous grasp of the truth of what actually is real. Is that also true?
I would say that he's liberal in praise of things that he likes in himself, and and then a sort of less. Well, he likes a good story, basically. So oftentimes what you'll see in a lot of these books here is that Volo will say something, and then in the footnotes there will be Elminster's corrections about what Volo said.
Right.
So Volo will have some grand claim or say something about the leaders of Zental Keep or something like that, and Elminster will say, that's true, or Volo's getting ahead of himself, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and which we continued with Volo's Guide to Monsters. There was that back and
Right.
forth between the two.
And so Volo, as you can see from how old some of these books are, this is from, the pages are yellowing here.
Yeah.
So the first sort of appearance is 1992, and then so that's obviously pre Spell Plague, and therefore the 100-year gap happens, and so Volo reappears obviously for Volo's Guide to Monsters, and so how did this guy survive this 100 years or whatever?
Yeah.
Well, there is a canon explanation for that, partially in the book Death Masks that Ed Greenwood wrote, the novel, and in that Elminster's having a conversation with Laeral about Volo, and she's kind of annoyed that there's some new guy called Volo writing all these things that are about her in the paper and stuff like that. And Elminster's like, no, it's the same guy. And the sort of story behind that is that so Mystra, the goddess of magic in the Forgotten Realms, has the weave, and it's basically how magic surrounds and it sort of infuses all of the world and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And various points in the history of the Forgotten Realms, she sort of had to shelter her power and her control of that weave in individuals. And for a long time, that was in the Chosen of Mystra, like Saloon and or Salune and Elminster and Laeral and so on and so forth. Well, at a certain point during that Spell Plague period, it was Volotham.
Wow, so he actually was an embodiment of the weave?
Well, Elminster basically says that he didn't necessarily even know, and so there's not really any explanation of how he rattled around, the world during the 100 years or what happened to him. I like to think that he was probably the victim of some imprisonment spell and just zapped, and then somebody at some point let him out.
Oh, okay, I got it. I guess I've been holding on to it this whole time.
And he just sort of pops back out again. But
interesting.
Yeah.
So does he know now that he was that integral in what was happening?
I imagine that he does, yeah.
Because he knew that he was living a long time.
Yeah. I mean, obviously at this point he's conscious that time has passed, and so
right.
Yeah.
What does Volothamp map to any character class? Like, is he a
technically,
rogue?
Yeah, no, technically he is a wizard. In fact, there's stats given for him there's a series of adventures. They're called the Marco Volo adventures, and there's 3 of them, and it's like departure, journey, and arrival. And the basic premise of that is that there's some Waterdeep noble who steals a magical artifact or something and blames it on Volotham Gedarm. And so you end up going on a series of adventures, but I think it's the third adventure, Arrival, where he's actually statted up as a 5th level wizard, and you get to see that he's got 17 charisma or whatever it might be.
Right.
I'll have to look that up.
That's super cool. All right. So for some reason, I always thought of him as a ranger or a rogue or some mix of those, but not that he was a.
He doesn't seem like a wizard, right? It doesn't seem like he'd be cast a lot of spells. But I mean, he did do that whole bit of studying about magic and so on. And
yeah. So it makes sense that some of the wizards and that Mistro would use him as a bank.
Yes, he has 16 charisma actually, supposedly. I'm not sure I buy
it. Did he create his own character sheet?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, I have to say, all of his stats are pretty high except for wisdom. So
nice. So how much of the characterization of Volo was from the hand of Ed Greenwood? Like, was it 90% him, or was it?
I would say the vast majority. I mean, I know that probably the basic premise came from Jeff Grubb originally, but when Ed wrote all these books here, right? He literally wrote all of them, right? It's 100% Ed, and so
got it.
And then there are various novels where Volo's mentioned or appears. It's often stuff that Ed has written and so on. So it's very much Ed's voice coming through Volo.
I like that. It's like this through line that along with like Mert the Moneylender and
Elminster and
that these touch points that kind of are different parts of, I guess, Ed's personality, but like kind of the personality of player characters in a way too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, the fact that Volo has been named after. The Volo Bog and the town of Volo and stuff like that there's there was a fusion initially there, but I think Ed then ran with it. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Now, does Volo ever break the fourth wall?
That's an interesting question. We know that Elminster does.
Yes,
but I don't think Volo does.
Okay.
No. I don't think Volo is aware of our reality.
Got it. All right. Well, whereas Elminster is and
yes.
is knows that he is a construct in a way. Or
I think in Elminster's reality, we are just another prime material plane.
I see.
That can be visited. We are another world that of the Dungeons and Dragons universe. Right?
Got it. Okay. So then he wouldn't necessarily be upset that we're reading about Volo's accountings of his prime material plane and want to correct it.
I mean, Elminster's notes in all of these books where he's correcting Volo really are for the benefit of us as readers, right? It's not for the readers of Volo's guides. Like Volo's guides are printed and they say what they say in the in-world, and his notes are basically telling us, hey, people of Earth, Volo isn't always on the up and up.
Nice. Well, and I like that then, because all right, then you're like, well, who is the source of these things in our world? And that would be Elminster / Ed Greenwood,
right.
Who's channeling all that stuff. Yeah, I love meta stuff like that, so that's why I ask about it, because it always tickles my little brain as to when are things real or part of the fictionary thing. And I love that Volo is that skirts that line very much so. So if you were playing in the Forgotten Realms and you need a novelist or a travel guide or kind of thing, like the character of Volo is someone that could pretty much show up anywhere.
Yeah, I mean he definitely gets all over the place in the realms. I mean the various places that they have books there for. I mean he's all over the north and the Sword Coast. He's gotten down south and all the way over to Cormyr. And so he's a widely traveled individual. There's sort of there's the idea that he's written other books that haven't been printed, and so he's a figure that can sort of be a guide to lots of different places and appear in lots of different places.
Where would you say his home base is? Is that Waterdeep?
Well, I think Volo is somebody that. I don't think he has a lot to tie him down. So I don't think Volo necessarily. He might own houses, places like Waterdeep and so on. But I imagine that he's pretty happy to quickly leave these places and move on to other places. I imagine Volo is somebody who lives in hotels a lot, basically.
He's basically a tavern,
Yeah.
He's a serial Yelp reviewer that goes to every place. And
This just keeps on moving along, trying the next restaurant, trying the next, inn and tavern, and so on and so forth. Just
That's very
traveling
cool.
and traveling and traveling.
Yeah.
And in world, I imagine, he's basically just sort of grifting his way through all of this by basically saying, hey, I'm going to review your tavern. And so they bring out their best food and give them their best room and all that kind of stuff. And then, he gets all that stuff for free. And
by the way, this review won't be published for 15 years until I go back to Waterdeep and give this to my publisher and all that. That makes sense. Does he have any tie? Well, you just mentioned he doesn't have ties, but does he visit Neverwinter and all the cities kind of regularly?
Sure, yeah. And then I'm pretty sure that he's been used as a character in the Neverwinter online game as a quest giver, but I'm not positive.
He's going to be, I
is
believe.
he?
Yes, voiced by Mr. Chris Perkins, who is not here.
Oh, I
yes,
see. Okay.
he will be the voice of Volo in Tomb of Annihilation, which comes out July 25th.
Cool. Well,
on PC.
Spoilers.
Spoilers alert. Yeah. I was like, oh, I wish Chris were here for this, just to give some insight, maybe even give the voice away. But no, you'll have to log on and check that out. Any other bits on Volo before we close this out?
Well, let's see. I was going to look at his stat block and just see if there's anything funny there. He can talk with animals because he has a what's called a beast speaker brooch, brooch, and he can talk to animals.
Okay, yeah.
There you go.
He doesn't even need to cast speak with animals. He's got it down pat.
I don't know why he needs to talk to squirrels, but sometimes,
Yeah, that seems a little bit out of character for him. He's not necessarily the wanderer into the woods type, although he does do that. But
yeah, I don't. And he eats a lot of animals. So, hello, Mr. Duck.
I would like to eat you. Show me where your chickadees are, and we'll get some eggs.
Which part of you is the brisket?
Awesome. Well, I love the character of Volo. It's good to hear some of his history, and I look forward to seeing more of him pop up in Forgotten Realms.
Yeah, hopefully we will.
Sweet. Matt, how can they ask you some questions about D&D lore?
At Cernett, SERNETT.
That's on the Twitter. And you can reach out to me. I'm at Greg Tito, and Mr. Chris Perkins, who's not here, is happy to answer lore questions when he can. He's at Chris Perkins DND. And if you have any questions about Dungeons & Dragons, go to dungeonsanddragons.com for more information. All right, thank you guys so much. We'll be back next week or one of the following weeks with more lore segments. Talk to you later. Bye-bye. Sweet. Oh, man. So there were a couple questions here. Will we get more Volo's guides, or will they be from other characters like Xanathar? Well, I don't know if we can talk about specific plans going forward, but the idea of a Volo type guide is something I think that we're going to lean on in the future. It's such a great thing. Like, why wouldn't we?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know to what degree we'll reproduce anything like these books here. But we'll certainly we'll have characters like Volo sort of have more of a voice in our products, I imagine. So
yeah, and he is a great one. We should have. It's been a while since we talked to Ed Greenwood on the podcast, so we should have him in and really get down and dirty on all these characters. I'd love to hear more about from his perspective of how they were all made.
Yeah, definitely. Volo would be a great thing to talk about to Ed about.
Yeah, because he's got such a tie to Ed's voice, or at least a portion of Ed's voice there. That would be fantastic. Yes, Neverwinter is on Steam and a bunch of other places for sure. So go check that out. It'll be out on PC on July 25th, but it'll come to Xbox One and PS4 a little bit after that. The new Tomb of Annihilation storyline, in case you guys were asking.
One of the things I just happened upon is that Volo wrote a guide to Skullport. And that's one of the ones that was squashed. They said, "Nope, you're not publishing that." So,
Skullport squashed it.
So
or Xanathar's.
So the weird thing about Skullport is that it is this pirate haven and city of crime and so on. Beneath Waterdeep, it's sort of hidden behind these sea caves and locks and so on. They get far underground, and Waterdeep doesn't want it widely known that there is a city of crime and slavery and drug sales and poison sales and all these other bad things happening underneath. It's very streets. So.
I guess both the lords and the denizens of Skullport would not want.
Yeah, you don't really want him to sort of say, hey, let's down there and look, that's the best tavern.
One of the few times that the overworld and the underworld are in agreement.
Yeah.
That makes total sense. But now I want to see what that guide looks like. Maybe that's one of the ones that we'll think about for the future, the guide to Skullport.
There's a lot. Idea.
There's a lot going on there. All right, guys, we're going to go into our next segment we're going to record today, which I'm going to say out loud one more time at Matt's prompting.
The Society of Stalwart Adventurers.
The Society of Stalwart Adventurers. Say that 5 times fast. I dare you. I triple dog dare you. Welcome to another Lore You Should Know segment. I am Greg Tito, and I'm joined by the illustrious Matt Zernit.
Hello.
Today we are going to delve into a specific little tidbit of Dungeons & Dragons lore, which is the Society of Stalwart Adventurers. I would totally understand if you guys had been D&D fans and fans of the lore and not know what that is. And that's what Matt is going to talk about today and make sure you all know everything you need to know about this wonderful group.
Yeah, so the Forgotten Realms has a long history of sort of mentioning various adventuring bands, individual bands. And there are often, or societies of adventurers and that kind of a thing. And probably the most sort of well-heeled and most or longest surviving organization of that is the Society of Stalwart Adventurers, and that's in Suzail and Cormier.
The longest surviving, so it's been around for how long?
Well, a little unclear because we don't have a date for its inception, but it's in a big sort of castle-like mansion building in Suzail with lots of rooms and lots of floors, and there are lots of sort of long-historied members and so on. Mm-hmm. And so it's very much like a fantastical take on the idea of sort of a hunting club, of the British Empire kind of a deal, or explorers club of the British Empire.
Kind of like the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, something like that.
A little bit, yeah. And I was looking at some of the descriptions today, and it's almost sort of Hogwarts-ish before Hogwarts was a thing, because there are all of these different rooms dedicated to different subjects. Like there's a druid who's in some room, and she's basically got a giant arboretum that she's doing crazy things in. And there's some other. The library has all these flying monkeys flying around, and they help get you books down from top shelves and all kinds of crazy things. Like there's a giant stuffed yeti.
That's super cool.
Yeah, and so the Society of Stalwart Adventurers is a group of it's a sort of long-standing group of adventurers who basically. What they do is they go out to places that are unexplored or haven't been seen in a long time, or they follow rumors of lost artifacts and that kind of a thing. So you imagine lots of sort of Indiana Jones type people coming back to this place and bringing back the treasures and bringing back their maps. It's one of the places in the realms that has sort of the best collections of maps of the world and various parts of the world and that kind of a thing.
The most accurate, as well as probably quite a few inaccurate ones that are like apocryphal. Be like, hey, don't listen to this one.
And so the Society of Stalwart Adventurers first pops up, I think, in The Ring of Winter, which is a novel that is set in Chult. Mm-hmm. And artist Cimber is, or Kimber, I think it's Cimber, is the sort of a member of the organization, and he goes on a search for one of its lost members, or following the path of one of its lost members, something Rayburton, I don't remember his first name. And it's a bit like Heart of Darkness kind of a thing in that sense of somebody going after that lost explorer kind of following their
traveling
footsteps.
as far as you can.
Yeah.
And things get more alien and strange the farther you go upriver.
And so Artis himself is very strange because he ends up sort of tagging along, or ends up having companions, basically a couple of talking wombats. And so that's a funny element of the novel. Like I remember reading that when I was younger, and it didn't faze me that he had talking wombats, because there's lots of other things going on in that novel that were really interesting and fun. That's a novel filled with dinosaurs and stuff. So what's wrong with talking wombats? But
Are they like his companions?
Yeah. They have like speaking roles. If we made a movie of that, they would be major characters.
Wow.
Talking wombats. But looking back at it now, it's like, where did that idea come from?
Is it a way to? I mean, I can imagine as a novel writer, you need someone so they're not just talking to themselves. They have, but then all of a sudden they become characters on their own.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's pretty awesome.
I have to ask the author.
Now I want some talking wombats.
But yeah, Artisimber is a member of that organization, and he goes off to Chult, and he ultimately finds the Ring of Winter, and that has ties to let's see. What's the Giant's adventure?
Storm King's Thunder.
Storm King's Thunder, thank you.
That's right. That's what the Frost Giants were looking for,
they were
this
looking
artifact.
they were looking for the Ring of Winter, and there are other ties in other products. I don't know that I can mention them right now.
That's probably true. Well, you mentioned it was set in Chult. That's where the Ring of Winter was lost, and Artisimber might have been looking for it there.
Yes, yeah, it's funny having I read the novel again when it first came out, and in my memory, they go over a waterfall at the end of the novel, and it just ends, and I was gut wrenched because I thought the heroes just went over the waterfall. He just got the Ring of Winter, and the heroes all went over the waterfall, and everyone's dead, and that's my memory of it.
Right.
Having gone back and looked at it again, that's not the end of the novel.
Is that just how far your little Matt got?
That's as far as I got, I guess. Because they go back to Cormyr, they live happily ever after for a while. They're talking wombats, like they're having a good time there in Cormyr.
They make wombat babies. It's a whole wombat family.
I don't know. So
that's okay. So good. All right. It does not. Don't stop at the waterfall. There's
keep going.
There's a whole part after
There's
that.
a happy ending after
There's
that.
a denouement, the falling action, literally after the waterfall. All right. So the League of Stalwart Gentlemen then is like this. Stalwart adventurers, not gentlemen.
Yes.
Gentle people. Is like kind of the framework of like, this is why Artisimber was going there in the first place.
Right, and it's picked up in novels here and there as a sort of a name for an adventuring group, particularly if there are novels that are centering around Cormyr and that kind of stuff. It's in a few products here and there that gets a mention, but the sort of most the largest descriptions of it are in the novels where it's mentioned, and at the time also when the novel was written, it had a butler named, I think, Uther, and Uther was a human who got sort of given a demonic appearance by another character from the Forgotten Realms lexicon, Denelothan, and he sort of accidentally turned him into something that looks like a demon, and it couldn't be reversed, so he ends up just being this weird demon butler. So add that to your idea of what this, imagine all of the D&D monsters, like, heads and horns and antlers and all those things on the wall, the books with the flying monkeys, and then also there's a demon butler.
It's odd that it's a demon butler and not a devil butler. For some reason, I would think a devil butler, at least, all right, that makes sense. They're subservient. They're, following their caste or whatever. But, like, a demon would be, like, utterly chaotic. Like, screw you, I'm not taking any orders.
No, he's very cultured and civilized, as butlers will be.
Oh, gosh, so he's really playing against type.
Yeah.
As far as the demon thing goes, but not for butlers. He's, like, straight on good butler man. I love it. So, what are some of the other members of this league?
I was going to look that up, and I think I did. I just have to find which group or book or whatever that's in.
It's another tab. We
so
must travel through tabs.
So many different
to
sources.
find it. Yeah, because I like this idea of there being kind of like an explorers league, or like it's kind of it's similar to what Mark Holmes is experimenting with High Rollers Uncharted Territory. That there was this group of Victorian almost era in our world, explorers that want to go find out more.
Yeah, so this book here, which we don't have it in PDF, so I have to get the hard copy.
Nice.
Realms of Infamy. The short story by James Lauder, Laughter in the Flames, has a whole bunch of the characters in it, and the main sort of thrust of the story is about a character who ends up being sort of proven to be not as much of a hero and an explorer as he says he is. But and I think his name is True Silver. There you go. There's a Sir Hamnet, True Silver. There's Ray Burton.
And Ray Burton was the one that was lost in
Right.
Schult that
Correct.
Artisimber was trying to find.
And it turns out that he ends up being found alive in Schult. So.
Spoiler alert for Ring of Winter novel.
Yep. So and that's sort of where the whole he's alive and he has a daughter, and that's who Artisimber has a relationship with at the end of the novel. That's how he has his happily ever after.
I see. And they go back to Cormyr?
Yep.
Nice. We haven't done an episode or a segment on Cormyr yet, have we?
Nope.
Yes. That's something I'd love to lean into more. How does that fit in with the conception of briefly, what is Cormyr and how does the League kind of fit into that society?
So briefly, Cormyr is a kingdom of a sort of a feudal kingdom. So there's a powerful king and then a whole bunch of various lords or barons, I forget their titles or whatever, and but it sort of has this mystique about it that's sort of like a Camelot-like. There's for a long time the ruler on the throne was King Azun. And he was sort of a very popular king, and everyone really liked him. And he was served by this wizard named Vangerdahas. I'm going to mispronounce that. And that was sort of his Merlin, and it had this sort of feel of Camelot. The undercurrent of all that, though, was really weird because essentially Vangerdahas is in charge of what amounts to a secret police force of wizards, who literally spy on virtually everyone that they can in the country. And they go in with hit squads if you are getting out of line and stuff like that. And so it's this sort of strange mix of the good kingdom plus, oh, wait, this is like a weird, creepy totalitarian state.
Right. It's like utopia can very quickly be dystopian in the framing.
And so Cormyr is it was a sort of a very powerful nation, sort of military-wise. They have what's called the Purple Dragons, which are their army.
Is that an actual army or is it more like an elite strike force?
So there's the Purple Dragons that are the army. They're just sort of like a soldier force that's constantly employed and then there's the Purple Dragon Knights, and there's the idea that they're sort of an elite version of that.
Oh, I see. Okay,
but they're sort of subordinate also to the wizards as well. So it all kind of flows back up through that sort of weird secret police force. And
interesting. All right. And so how does the League fit into all that? Like, how are they part of that system?
Well, Cormyr has, for a long time on sort of the books of Cormyr's legal system, required that any band of adventurers or whatever have to register.
Oh, okay.
So you actually have to sort of register and pay a fee and say that we're going to go and do X, Y, and Z, or else it can be deemed illegal and you can be punished if you're caught. And so the Society of Stalwart Adventurers obviously grows up from this world in which, or this country in which, there are a bunch of people who have to register and they have to go through all this process. And so this long-standing organization grows and forms and
neat
becomes that.
Okay, that's kind of interesting because you think about people who play Dungeons and Dragons now. I don't think the idea of naming your group that you played with was quite so concrete as it is now with streaming and with like the fact that like, oh, we are Vox Machina or we are the Waffle Crew or we are Force Grey, and in some ways it might have begun with this League of Stalwart Adventurers. Like this is this idea that this is our group, and party members may change here and there, but this is our core team.
Yeah, and going back to Ed's campaigns, even really before he was getting published, and as he was publishing sort of the initial elements of Forgotten Realms, there are a number of different sort of adventuring bands that were made by his players in his various campaigns that became part of the canon.
Okay.
And then they ended up, being in, the stronghold of the Nine, for example, someplace near I think the High Forest, and that's actually some place that was sort of founded by members of his own players of his own campaign, and that kind of a thing. So,
I love it.
Yeah.
All right, that's super cool, and I like that we're kind of now creating our own registered parties of adventurers now in the Forgotten Realms.
And if they go to Cormier, got to sign up.
They got to sign up. They got to pay the fee.
Yep.
Yeah, or else the wizards will come after you.
Yep.
Yeah. Is this last question? Is that Pendergrass guy? Is he still in charge in Cormier?
I think, let's see, where are we at? Is it Queen Alisair or somebody else now? Because it was Azalm, and then I don't remember who's queen now, or I think it's queen of Cormier. It is not Vanguard Hast, because weird things happened there. He was a dragon for a while, I think, and then he was a spider.
Oh my gosh! All right, so we are leaning into so many other lower you should know segments.
Yeah, like I think my memory's hazy on where he ended up, but I think he might be sort of semi-immortal as a dragon with a mate, and they are off being dragon people. But I'm not positive.
Awesome. All right. Well, we definitely need to do a segment some point down the line.
Yeah. He's got like an apprentice who runs it, who's basically like the same kind of guy.
Oh, okay, cool. All right, that was close. But that's exciting. I love that I can ask you questions, and it makes me want to have 4 other different segments. That's part of the fun of doing this. So thank you, sir. Where can people ask you some wonderful follow-up questions on all these threads?
On Twitter at Cernett, SERNETT.
Awesome. And I'm at Greg Tito. And for those of you who are interested, you can find out watching us record these live on twitch.tv/DND. We're got a collection of all of the Sage Advice as well as Lore You Should Know segments up on there. So go check that out. All right. Thank you guys so much, and we'll be back next week. Ba-ba-da-bum. How would a society differ from a faction? I think in the society is just that party.
Yeah.
Right?
The society is the organization. I guess it's just a matter of scale and of influence. So the factions that we have with 5th edition that we've sort of surfaced are pretty wide-ranging networks that have stated goals and so on.
Yeah.
Whereas the Society of Stalwart Adventures is more of just sort of a group of individuals who kind of all do the same thing, and they go back to their club and they read books and regale each other with tales of their adventures and so on and so forth.
Right.
They don't have a stated goal or anything besides the sort of exploration and discovery.
It's like the difference between a supper club and the NRA.
Right.
The NRA has definitely we have a goal, we've got something going on, but the supper club is just hey, we just come in here and we hang out.
Yeah, that's a very good analogy.
Nothing else going on. Awesome, cool. That was a really good question, Tero Twitch 3. I like that one. And oh my gosh, there's been now a poll to see if Nathan is going to crash the next segment of this podcast. Nathan Stewart, our director of D&D, he's got some great things coming on for Force Grey. I think the poll was some smoke and mirrors because he was going to join us anyway. But I love it. Please vote now and continue to blame me for everything that's going on. We're going to take a bit of a break from recording this now, and then we'll get a couple more microphones on here. We're going to talk with me and Shelley, Bart Carroll, and Nathan Stewart about the filming of Force Grey Season 2. Should be pretty exciting.
Woo-hoo.
Yeah, and Force Grey is one that we've always talked about as being one of these great groups. So I can't wait to delve into that more. All right. Bye, you guys. We'll be back in a couple minutes.